Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Maven Talks. I'm super excited to be here after almost a month. I had on my own ups and downs, and I had just one episode scheduled last month, but due to some reasons that got cancelled, so we didn't have any episode. But I'm super excited to be here, to be back, and so finally, we are here at episode 16 of Maven Talks. And before we start, as you already know, don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you're here for the first time or haven't done it yet. Plus, press that bell icon next to the subscribe button so you don't miss any updates and it reaches you on time. Now, I'm going to introduce the guest speaker for this evening, whose name is Mr. Nishant Sharma. Nishant sir is responsible for advancing and propagating Dolby's patent licensing program in India and Southeast Asia. Being an electronics engineer and having a degree in law, he takes a keen interest in reading about the latest developments in the technology area and also about the interplay of law and technology. Prior to joining Dolby, Nishant sir has worked with various law firms and has extensive experience in patent litigation, patent prosecution, and preparation in various domains, including electrical, electronics, mechanical, and biomedical engineering. He has represented his clients before various high courts, appellate court, and patent office branches in India. So this is going to be a really interesting session, and I'll just switch on to Nishant sir. Yeah, sir, you are live now. You can unmute your mic.
Okay. Thank you, Rakshit. Thank you for a very nice introduction.
First
Pleasure
of
to
all,
be
how are
here
you?
with good. Pleasure to be here with you, speaking to students. Maybe I'll be happy to share my thoughts regarding the IP field, which I believe is a new field. Not many people know about it, and so I would be happy to share my thoughts regarding that particular field.
Okay, that's great. And how about we start with your early years? So let's go back to 1997 when you started doing your Bachelor's of Engineering in Electronics. What
Right.
made you pursue an engineering degree?
So, 1997, I think almost more than 20 years, 25 years, long time back. Engineering and medical used to be the only two career options available to students back then. Uh, we didn't have any Instagram or Facebook, and there's no influencers as such, so that option was not available. So engineering and as I said, engineering and medical used to be the most coveted professions. My father was an engineer, and I was thus in a way a bit inclined towards engineering, uh, and that's how, yeah, probably I had seen him work on different engineering problems, so as to say. He was a mechanical engineer, and the other thing was he was in a government job, so he had a transferable job. He would get transferred every 3 years or so from one place to the other, and I think that part also excited me a bit. That probably I thought maybe being an engineer would help you roam about here and there. Maybe you become a sort of traveler, being an engineer. So yeah, this was my initial, I would say, understanding of engineering. Uh, I was pretty much average in studies, so yeah, that's how parents also thought that maybe he might do good in engineering, and that's how uh, I drifted towards engineering.
So yeah, like it was a long time back, and we are talking about time when I was not even born yet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Maybe most of you might not have been born by then. So.
yeah. So what is your favorite memory or story from your bachelor's that you're very much fond of?
Uh, okay, so I was lucky enough to be attending a college which was far away from my home. So, so in a way, that was my initial, I would say, my first learning experience in that sense, staying away from home, because otherwise you are always with your parents under a protected environment. So when you go to a college, and especially far away from home, live in a hostel, You learn different aspects of life, managing things on your own. The most important thing is adaptability, because you are living with three or four more guys who may have different temperaments, and that's how you learn how to adjust. So, and also the conditions are not as what you have at home. You don't have those comforts, so you learn how to, in a way, adjust to things. Maybe also make uh, yeah, you learn how to uh, uh, do away with all the luxuries and the habit of yours of luxuries, and try and live a simple life. The other memory I have is uh, as I said, I was traveling earlier because my father used to have a transferable job. He used to get transferred every 3 or 4 years. So I didn't have any permanent friends, I would say, as such. Every place I went to, I made new friends, but those were not, I would say, permanent friends, so as to say that. Engineering, I made, I think, few good friends who have remained thick since then. Uh, we went through everything. I think at that point of time, we used to have ragging in colleges, and it was not like what probably you. I'm not sure whether you guys have gone through that phase or not, but we used to have ragging, and batches prior to us used to have those physical ragging, but thankfully we didn't have a ragging that went to that level. But yeah, uh, it was like an interaction. It used to be called an interaction with the seniors, but yeah, it was far more than an interaction, where you would be standing in your bare essentials before the seniors and introducing yourself. So I got to attend those interaction sessions with my friends, and that's how we became thicker. Uh, Maybe helping out each other. Maybe if one was falling short, helping him out, trying to save that particular person from the wrath of the seniors as such. So yeah, this is, I believe, my best memory, having friends, enjoying that life. Yeah, I think it was a great learning experience.
Yeah, that's great. Like we don't have ragging now because it's banned in our colleges. But I guess it's still prominent a little bit in government colleges as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
especially if you are away from home. I think if you are, at least if you are not a day scholar, yes, I believe it might be still there. As I said, not to that level, but yes, it's. Yeah, I think it might be still called interaction, and I believe those interactions might be happening still.
yeah. And immediately after like finishing your engineering, you joined Hindustan Aeronautics Limited.
Aeronautics, yeah.
So yeah. So what caused an inclination towards aerospace science and technology?
So actually, I would say I have been getting a lot of, I would say, opportunities in that sense. Uh, I passed out in 2001, and immediately after I passed out, the World Trade Towers fell. So there were no jobs as such. My seniors, I believe, they were lucky enough to get jobs in US and maybe in other IT companies. But when we passed out, there was a dearth of IT jobs, so as to say, and IT was the only field that was doing good around that time when we were in engineering. So I joined a course in between, so as to try and pass time. So that was an IT course that I did. Tried to learn some software and try to do something of make something of it. Uh, but eventually, I realized that probably the jobs in the private sector are not that many, and it's fierce competition. And as I said, I was not a very, I would say, I was an average student in that sense, in engineering at least. So I thought I'll try for government jobs, and Hindustan Aeronautics Limited was one of the companies I also wanted to join for the reason that it was related to the defense sector, maybe somewhat equivalent to serving your country uh, from closer borders in that sense. So yes, so I appeared for an examination, cleared that, went through an interview process. The government agencies grill you like anything, and was lucky enough to be selected for HAL. Uh, so that's how I went into Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, joined a government job, and I think there also used to be a joke around the time when we passed out. I think someone was telling me that at that point of time, TCS or the government job were the two jobs which were considered to be the most stable jobs. Some guy got a opportunity in an MNC, and his parents said that it would have been better had you got a job in TCS. So, so it was that situation at that point of time, and I was lucky enough to be selected by a government agency to serve the government. Uh, Served there for around 3.5, 4 years, and it was a good time.
Yeah, like it's still prevalent, I guess, that parents do know how good government jobs are, like keeping in mind the comforts, pension, etc.
Yes, yes, it is.
Yeah. And before I ask you questions about your career path as a patent associate, for all the viewers who don't know anything about it, would you like to explain in layman terms what exactly a patent or an intellectual property is?
Right. Uh, so I would say I'll start with intellectual property. Intellectual property is something that is like your own property. Uh, like you have your house, you have your car, that's your property. Intellectual property is something that you develop from your creation of your mind. So you have your creativity, you can create maybe a beautiful painting or maybe a beautiful song. Even you create all these computer programs, or maybe a good uh, design of a footwear, and maybe you might be developing new inventions which solve technical problems. So all these are creations of your intellect, and that's your intellectual property. And what I work for is I help people, the creators of these creations, to protect them in their name. So obviously, if you have a property, you would want that to be protected in your name. So so as to be able to use it for your own purpose, or maybe commercialize it if you want to. Maybe you give you rent out your property. So you can do all sort of commercialization stuff with your property. So in a similar manner, you can do it with your own creations, whatever you make. So the early part of my career was towards helping people protect these creations of theirs. I, being an engineer, was primarily working on the innovations part, which is the inventions, whatever new technologies you develop, and help them secure that right in their name. So, like a new smartphone, a new, like 5G technology. There are thousands of patents on 5G technology. So there are creators who have created that technology, and they have patents in their name, protecting their rights on those patents.
Okay, that's wonderful. And after like working for roughly 4 years as an engineer, you pivoted your career path towards a patent associate, as you said. So that again brings me down to two questions. First, how did you not only gather knowledge about something that was different, but also practice it? Because you were into engineering, doing something else, and you totally shifted into something else, and you even practice that. So you were actually working on it.
Right.
So how did that happen?
Again, that happened by chance. I was somewhat happy working at HAL. It was almost 3.5 years. I was blessed to be working on a new project. At that point of time, India had got licensed production of Sukhoi 30 aircrafts. So that aircraft came to our division, and I was lucky enough to be working on those aircrafts. Worked from close quarters on those aircrafts, and my uh, job was to develop testing stands for the aircraft based on Russian designs. So I was happy doing it, but okay, after 4 years, it was getting a bit stagnating. Uh, I tried to, in a way, shift my line in the sense that maybe there was another division where I could have contributed towards the electronics side. Here, I was working more on the aeronautical and pneumatics, hydraulics, more of the mechanical and production side. So I thought I'll try and shift gears and probably shift towards R&D in the electronics side. But again, government agencies don't work in the manner as private institutions. You you are earmarked for a particular position. It's difficult to move from one place to the other. So I was looking out for a change. My wife was working here in Delhi. So we thought maybe let's give it a try. Probably I can maybe take some leaves, give it a try my hand at shifting field. And here I was in Delhi. There was an advertisement that came in a newspaper, which from a law firm, which was asking for patent engineers. And I was quite surprised to see why a law firm would need a patent engineer, because that term was new in in that era. I would say no one had heard of what a patent engineer is. Uh, and I believe no one had heard what a patent was also. So did a bit of research. They had asked for resumes to be submitted in handwriting, and that also I think uh, I found very interesting as to why a firm would want
Handwritten.
handwritten resumes, which was like a very primitive British type era requirement. So I thought let's give it a try. I sent my resume. I got a call. Uh, did a bit of research on what patents are. Thankfully, Google was there by then, and as Google has been helpful to all of us, it was helpful back then as well. So I got to know some basics about patents, and based on that, I went for the interview, got selected. But again, I got an offer from them, and I was still undecided as to whether I should be joining or not. Because what would an engineer do in a law firm? And it was very difficult to explain to people as well. Maybe for a few, for a couple of years after joining, I couldn't explain to my in-laws as well as to what I was doing. So so that's how it so thankfully there was a friend, a sister's my sister's friend who worked in this field, and though she was not an engineer, but she guided me a bit about that. Yes, patent engineers are those who work on newer technologies, help people protect their innovations, and it's a growing field. I joined somewhere in 2006. It was still growing at that point of time. It was just the nascent phase. So that's how I entered the field. Uh, First day, I was given, I think, two or three files, maybe this big, and I was asked to read through it and understand the basics. So there was it was something like a on the job training. So one had to read the files and then understand, and uh, legal files are like they are uh, placed sequentially backwards. So in a way, a patent file would be the whatever happened earliest would be at the back. So I started reading it from the beginning, and I couldn't understand a word. So then I asked my senior, and he told me that okay, you have to read the file from backwards. So that's how. that was the first learning experience. I was lucky enough to have good seniors who guided me through, gave me all the material, were in a way very cool in whenever I would go to them with the questions. And for the first, I believe, 15, 20 days, there were many questions I had because this was a totally new field for me. Yeah, so that's how, in a way, I worked towards understanding what the field is, and slowly, once you start working on a particular thing, you get a grasp of it. Maybe you just need to know what are the tricks of the trade, and that's how you can proceed and probably master it as well.
I did my own research into like patents as well.
Okay.
So drafting one, and it's tricky. The language is tricky. So how did you get hold of that without actually having any formal education in that?
So again, it was on the job training. Uh, so my first job was with a law firm. Unfortunately, at that point of time, not many law firms were doing patent drafting as such. So after working for 1.5 years with the law firm, I thought maybe let's learn something new, because this is not the only thing that I would want to learn in the field, because it's very vast. So I joined, at that point of time, we used to have those legal process outsourcing firms. We used to call them LPOs, which did the patent analytics work and patent preparation work. So like all this drafting and searching for whatever prior arts are there, who used to be done by those LPOs. So I again risked it a bit and joined an LPO. uh, Again, I was lucky enough to have good mentors who guided me through and helped me with the learning the nuances of drafting. So it's a very, I would say, a very typical art. Uh, you need to be very clear of what you are writing. You need to be wary of not being too broad as well as not being too narrow. So that's the thin line that you need to treat in a drafting field. And thankfully, I had the best of the mentors who helped me with that. And yeah, that's how I learned drafting.
Okay, and to me, you'd appear like a kind of person who has always followed his heart. So in past, while you were taking this turn, were you always brave and like that big a risk taker, or you had a fair share of questioning and self-doubt because you were eventually changing something? So how did you encounter those things?
I think this answer should be better given by my family, who had to bear all these decisions, which were bold at times. Uh, but yes, I think yes, you need to take risks at times. I have taken risks. I won't deny that. But yeah, all these risks have been calculated risks, wherein you deliberate on before taking that risk. You deliberate on what are the pros, what are the cons. So in a way, you list that out, and whatever weighs more, you lean in that favor. So yeah, so in a way, shifting from HAL, a stable government job, to patents field, that was a big risk, I would say. Uh, but thankfully, it worked out well. And again, we had evaluated all the pros and cons, and maybe it was a new field, and we thought probably this would have good growth opportunities. And uh, and thankfully it turned out well. Again, shifting from a stable law firm job, I was doing quite well, was appreciated a lot by my seniors. But again, then shifting to a new firm, trying to learn a thing which probably I would not have learned at the law firm. Again, that was a risk. But again, the pros leaned in that favor. So so yeah, uh, have I would say yes. I've been following my heart, but again, applied my mind to that as well, and that's how you need to treat always, at least in your career, or maybe in your personal life as well. You need to uh, look into all the pros and cons. At least think of it.
Yeah. So I guess like those hostel days made you quite adaptable.
Yes, and risk taker as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
That's me.
I don't take unnecessary risks. That's for sure. That's all.
Yeah. That's amazing. Like, and the reason that I asked this question particularly was that youngsters these days are less willing to take risks. So right after college, they want a stable job and like want to stay in that job. So do you have any
Exactly.
message for them?
I've always believed in one thing, and as I said, it this has grown on me over the my professional life, that whatever has to happen would happen. So so in a way, even if you are in the most stable job, maybe if at one point of time it's not going to be that stable, it would happen. So you need to think of your priorities. As I said, don't be a reckless risk taker. Whenever you have to take a risk, I would say go through all the pros and cons. Discuss it with your parents. Discuss it with your friends, maybe mentors, your teachers, and then evaluate on your own terms as to how do you want to go about it. Because finally, it would be you who would be bearing that, and you should not in a way regret uh, taking that decision, even if you have taken that decision and it doesn't work out. So uh, and failures are bound to happen. It's no one can guarantee 100% success unless you are god, or maybe Mr. Amitabh Bachchan sitting at the KBC seat. So so in a way, what I'll say is that maybe you can take that risks. Just hold on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. So uh, so maybe what you can do is you can always talk to your parents, talk to your mentors, and then take a decision. And don't be afraid of failures, because it's only going to help you learn, and it would give you one learning or the other. So, and I would say I won't say I haven't failed. I have also failed, but maybe there was some learning in every failure, and that's how I've gone ahead with that. So I would say don't be risk averse per se, but yeah, uh, take a calculated decision.
Anyways, you finally did your LLB from Delhi University, like after practicing
Yeah.
as an intellectual property associate for 3 years. So you are back into that, I would say, college or formal setting. So at that point in time, did you have any roadblocks or challenges?
So as I said, I was working for a law firm that was in Gurgaon, and my college was in Dholakua, which was maybe around 12, 15 kilometers from there. And at that point of time, the construction on the NH was happening, and there used to be a lot of delays. So and thankfully the teachers were lenient enough to allow us to attend classes even if we were a bit late. So that was one of the challenge, reaching classes on time after completing your work, and also maintaining minimum attendance levels, because uh, you guys are aware of it, that at least 60 to 70% of attendance is required. And doing a degree with professional commitments is, like, I would say, very tough in that sense, because you might get uh, some projects which need your attention, and you can't divert your attention from that, but you need to also go and attend your classes because you have that commitment there as well. So that was one of the challenges. How would one overcome that? I think that's only because of the support of your family. Yeah, that they help you out with the with all those things. You are maintaining two parallel lives. So in a way, uh, thanks to my wife, and I had a small kid at that time. So taking care uh, of him was generally primarily her duty at that point of time. And yeah, so this was, I would say, the the primary challenge, maintaining a dual life, but in the positive sense.
Okay. Yeah, like attendance is always a challenge. Not in a scenario after COVID, but it was always a challenge, and it's still a challenge once we
Right.
are in offline mode.
Yeah. So,
And there's a question that like a close friend of me particularly asked that if you want to go for studying a law degree,
right.
like LLB,
Yeah.
should he or she go after doing the engineering like directly, or maybe have some work experience?
I think having a work experience won't hurt. It always gives you another perspective. Like, I worked for HAL. I got to learn many new things. Like, I was an electronics engineer, but then I got to learn of how pneumatic systems work, how a hydraulic system works, and the very basic of an aircraft. What is a pitch? What is yaw? What is an aileron? Or what is a rudder? So all these things help you out, because in the patents field, or maybe if you are asking, if you consider the patents field, you need to know about different technologies. If you talk about law, as such, only law broadly as a career, I think that would also help you, because, as I said, it broadens your horizon. You have that technical basis with you. You never know when a particular case would come to you where you need to use the technical knowledge that you gained during your professional career. But as of now, what has happened, and this has evolved over a period. Now we do have professional LLB degree where you can do engineering and directly go on to do get a LLB degree. So there is a university by the name of UPES in Dehradun, which offers an integrated course on B.Tech and LLB. So it's a 6 years course, I believe, and you can do a 4 year engineering with uh, I would say two almost an overlapping year for LLB and B.Tech. So that's and nothing would hurt, as I said. If you have a professional degree, professional experience, I think that would be good. But even if you are not getting any opportunities and you want to go ahead and straight away go into the law field, that would also not be detrimental as such, or maybe uh, yeah,
Yeah.
you can go for that as well. It all
Yeah,
depends
so
on
like
it
work
all
experience
depends
do
on
adds to your knowledge, obviously. That's one thing. Yep.
right. Don't restrict. I would say don't restrict yourself as such that I would do this only when this should not be there. If you are getting an opportunity to work
Yeah.
and at a professional level at some point of time, gain some knowledge, get it for 2 years. Maybe you might start liking that field. Maybe you may not want to go for LLB then, but
Yeah.
if you are getting if you are not getting any opportunity, you have the option of going for LLB. Go for it.
Yeah, and in general, like it's a generic thing that with time we tend to be comfortable with where we are presently at, and
Yes.
you eventually lose that willingness to learn something new. So, like, what was the inspiration that kept that thirst of knowledge alive in you?
So that some part of it is ingrained in a way. You need to have some, at least in the legal field, you need to read a lot. You need to be aware of different things. So it's not only your laws. You also need to know about history. You also need to know about geography. You also need to know about in the patents field, you need to know about your engineering as well, and not only electronics engineering. You may have to use your knowledge about mechanical engineering, civil engineering, or any type of engineering. So you have to read a lot, that's for sure. And even if you are practicing in the general LLB field, a legal field, even then you need to study a lot. And from my childhood, I would read a lot. I had that penchant for learning. I would want to learn things. I was very fascinated by people who would uh, talk very confidently about any subject matter. My father used to be one of them. He would read a lot, the paper from the first page till the last page, word by word. And so that's probably that he was an inspiration in that sense. And that's how I started. I would say enhancing my knowledge, reading everything, whatever I could get hold of. What I can remember of is I never used to sit idle. That's what I uh, can remember about myself. Not to brag about that, but yes, I keep on reading something or the other, even if it is the label behind a maybe a packaging or something like that. So I read that as well at times.
Eventually, reading has also helped me a lot. If you talk about me particularly, I was a person during my school years who can't like talk in front of a big audience or even a small audience on stage. And like you are seeing me talking to you live. So it eventually came for reading as I uh, get to know about different things and
Right.
plus being in school, maybe I didn't like those subjects much, so I didn't went through books, and I eventually ended up hating reading. But once I came across a book, and there was like this uh, special quote somewhere that it's not your responsibility to be loved with that book, it's the book's responsibility to get you in love with it. So yeah, it eventually helped me a lot. And well,
Right. It does.
yeah, there's also a question from Mr. Nirav Shah in the chat box. So, what are the different fields of law that are required to be a good IP counsel apart from the IPR laws?
So I think you need to know about civil procedure code if you are practicing before. So I would say in IP law there are different fields where you work. So there I'll just divide it for simplicity. I'll just divide it into, I would say, three main areas. One would be patent preparation and prosecution, which is like you prepare a patent, or for that matter any IP, you prepare that documentation and file it with the authorities and uh, get them to grant you your rights. The other one is enforcement, where you have got your rights and then you help the creators to, in a way, secure their rights in the sense that no one else uses that creation in an unauthorized manner. And the third part is the licensing part, where licensing or commercialization, wherein you need money, you can license it out to other people, you earn money out of it or whatever creation you have. So uh, for patent, for IP creation and for protection, all you need is a knowledge of the various IP laws. There is a copyright law, there is a design law, patents law, trademarks law. So these are the basic laws that you need to know of. I believe because you are practicing before an authority, which is not like a legal, which is not like a court of law as such. So it's called a quasi judicial authority. So you can, I think, knowing these laws would be sufficient enough uh, for enforcement when you are before the court. You need to know, apart from these laws, you need to know CPC, which we call as the Civil Procedure Code. You need to know the Evidence Act, because uh, when you file a litigation, you need to go through the entire stages where there's a trial, there is a cross examination. You Some basic idea you might have got from the movies. It's unlike what is shown in movies. The cross examination is not like that. You can't say milord milord every time. But that's these are some of the basic laws that you need to know apart from the basic IP laws. Then coming to the commercialization part, here the most important law that you would need to use is probably the Contracts Act, because you are entering into a business contract with maybe a company, maybe another person who might be exploiting your innovation or your IP, and he has to pay you a fee for that, a royalty fee. So you would like to bind them by some legal terms, so that if there is a breach, you can approach a court of law and help protect your rights, get back whatever is due to you, and all that stuff. So I think these are the basic laws I would say you need to know at least, apart from the IP laws. But again, it all depends on which stage uh, of the IP field you are working in. So I, in a way, graduated from the first stage to the second stage, and now I'm working in the third stage. So that's how I've proceeded, and I believe that would be the general progression for any IP attorney.
Yeah, like being an attorney, being a lawyer, you need to grab a lot of learn a lot of things.
Yeah,
You need to remember a lot of say codes or laws. Uh,
right.
like uh, so that was the one of the reasons I was actually considering law before getting into engineering, but that was the
Okay.
reason. I knew I'm kind of person who can't remember stuff. Uh, on an average, I had to spend almost like 4 times a person generally spends time on reading something. So I have friends that would maybe take 2 days and get back uh, before and be there before the exam and still ace it. And to be able to get that much of marks or whatever you say, I had to spend actually 8 days just learning stuff again and again and again. So is that true that you have to remember a lot of stuff?
Not exactly. You need to know a lot of stuff, but not necessarily remember it. If you ever get a chance to visit a high court hearing, maybe all the senior counsels or the counsels who are there, they don't remember stuff. They prepare a note of their arguments in a way, and just maybe like you give your presentations, they know that stuff. They don't remember it by heart. They have all the reference material available to them. The only thing is you need to know what to say at what point of time, and that's what is the important aspect. Unfortunately, our academic system is somewhat where you need to cram up things, you need to remember things. It's not like that in professional life. I believe even in the IT field also, you don't have to remember any particular code or anything. You develop it. You have the basic understanding and you develop it. So it's the same in law as well. You need to know the basic concepts and apply it to a particular situation. That's how we do it. So a law, and the funny part about law is uh, it would apply to different situations in a different manner. So it all depends on what are the particular facts where you are applying a particular provision. So maybe at one point of time, this to a particular fact, that law may apply, and sometimes it may not apply at all. So you cannot, I would say, and you should not remember things. Just remember the basic concepts. That's what is important.
That's great. And well, now you are working at Dolby Labs, which is one of the leading tech companies when it
Right.
comes to sound systems. I'm sure
Right.
like everyone must have heard about it.
Yeah.
So how's your experience been at Dolby?
Well, Dolby is a wonderful company to be at. I would say the environment is completely different from whatever I have seen so far. You are surrounded by all tech geeks. So we are continuously developing new technologies in the audio and video space. And you can imagine the type of people who are there, uh, who work on these technologies, and they are very passionate about all these technologies. So unlike many big companies, s- we do not file everything and anything. We file very specific patents on specific technologies, and which we know would have a commercial value. So that's what uh, the company works for, and I think provides a great environment for people to grow. As I already told you, I've now started. I've enrolled for a LLM program, and this was one of the things that Dolby supported me with. That maybe yeah, this would help in uh, growing my professional profile, as well as for would help me in whatever work I'm doing for Dolby. So yeah, it's a very good company to work with.
Yeah, that's amazing. And there's one more question by Nirav.
Yeah.
He says that if you could share some uh, examples being at Dolby Lab where you had to litigate. So it's up to you. Like you could be generic if you want to answer too generic, maybe without disclosing any details. Or
Right.
yeah,
I think I'll not discuss that here. Maybe there
yeah,
might be public information. If you
sure.
search on Google, you would get to know of it. But yes, at times, if required, we do have to litigate, and it's the same with all companies, or all, for that matter, patent holders who have patent rights, and if someone is infringing that, people do litigate. So it's nothing off as such.
But litigation isn't anything like that's shown in movies.
Definitely not. That's because we are dealing with the civil aspects of litigation. It's generally civil remedies that are available for IP. It's not a criminal remedy that you seek, at least in the patents field. There are some criminal proceedings in I believe piracy related offenses, but nothing as such in patents. So we are in a way peaceful in that sense. And But yes, whenever litigation happens, it's always I would say animated discussions, because there are lawyers who are protecting their clients' interests, and we are also passionate about our technology. We know the strength of it, and that's the reason we fight for it. And but yes, it's nothing like what you see in movies. So there is no Tariq pe Tariq dialogue, or something like that.
Yeah, even like the quotes, I think they don't look that good that they make in movies. Like once I got a chance to go to a hearing, and it wasn't a room as big. There were a lot of Almiras, a lot of files, and like whatnot.
No, it depends on what court you are going to. Generally, the lower courts, the district courts are, I would say, not that equipped as high courts. And again, if you go to a Supreme Court, it is at another level altogether. But yes, and the sad part here is that courts are heavily overburdened. So the files that you see have been accumulated for each matter over, maybe sometimes these matters go on there. There are property matters that go on for maybe 20 years, 30 years. And that's the reason you see all those files. We are slowly shifting towards the digital uh, files and digital courts, but I think it would still take some time for that. And yeah, so that's the reason you see all those files and everything. And yeah, courts are chaotic for sure, because uh, I believe Indians are litigations by default. So everyone wants to fight it out and see before the court, and try and settle matter before the court. So yeah, that's the reason courts are chaotic and crowded, and maybe not that well kept. But yeah,
Yeah.
it all depends on the level of court also.
Yeah. Like moreover, bringing that, making it digital. Uh, People in India are still have that mentality where they like everything on paper. Like even we have
Yes.
shifted to digital. People like to have, like if I even talk about someone in my family, they still want to have those bills on paper, even though they have it in their phone. Yeah.
And especially in the legal field, actually, working with a digital file is at times difficult also, because you have, like in a patents matter, the number of pages would run into 10,000 pages at times, because you are submitting all relevant evidence, and that may run into thousands of pages each. So, yes, working with a digital file is sometimes difficult. But yes, slowly, I would say people are adapting to it because of the COVID times. Not many people want, I would say, physical files. So, people have started working on electronic files now.
Yeah. And what does your typical day like look like as a patent attorney, and how is it different from that it was during while you were doing your job as an engineer in an IT firm?
Right. So now, I would say when I was working for the law firm, working on the patent preparation and prosecution part, it was generally looking into what are the matters for today. In a way, we used to go to patent office, argue out cases. It's something like what happens in a court. So you go to patent office. There are hearings appointed for granting a patent or refusing a patent. So it's generally you look into all those. Your day begins with planning your day, how it would go. So you then you go to attend to your and in patent prosecution, most of the works are deadline related. So patents in patent law in that sense is a very strict law. You need to abide by all deadlines. You cannot in a way relax on those deadlines. So you have to take a note of all those deadlines that are upcoming, and maybe if you need some instructions from the client, you get back to them, or maybe prepare responses or whatever are the queries from the patent office. You respond to that, go to the patent office, attend hearings, come back, report to the client what the patent office said, what changes need to be made in the patent application, and then probably uh, raise the billing invoice, which is the most important part. Uh, that's where all the money would come from. So that's what generally happens with in a prosecution field, I would say. Uh, Litigation again, that's you have your matters before court, so there are deadlines for various pleadings that need to be filed, various evidence that need to be filed, and again, those are very strict deadlines. So yeah, so that's how again you plan your day, go for hearings if there are any, and come back and again report to the client, raise the invoice. That's the common part. What I do now is slightly different in that sense, because it's more about licensing. So you have discussions with potential licensees who might be using your technology. So you contact them, tell them how they are using your technology. They need to take a license. Provide them with material if they want to understand how they are using your technology. Have discussions, probably if they want to enter into a license, then go into all those licensing discussions. There are pricing discussions. So all that happens almost uh, like in a day's work. That's how it goes.
So, okay, Nirav also has a question that Nirav is basically in final year. He's pursuing LLB
Okay.
and has graduated from Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering
Well.
and is working as a patent associate in Mumbai. So
Uh-huh.
he's asking what's your advice for pursuing LLM in IP, or like it, especially pursuing it in say US or UK.
As I said, no knowledge is waste. So if you have the opportunity, go for it. Uh, LLM, I would say, is more of an academic degree, because you get to know of the academic aspects of all these laws. So, what were the treaties, how they came into being, At least I'm telling you about India. Maybe in abroad, the concept might be a bit different. You again, it is research based, so you get to research on new upcoming topics, maybe suggest new, I would say, methods to deal with problems that are uh, affecting the IP regime in your country or maybe worldwide. So the, it's more of a research based degree, and if you have that interest in a way going for more research and probably finding out a solution to a problem that's affecting the IP system in worldwide or in your country, I think you should think of going for an LLM. But just don't do it for the sake of getting another degree. That's what I would say.
Okay, great. And so my last question for the day is that if you had an opportunity to step into your early years, maybe when you were in school or college, would there be anything that you'd like to tell your younger selves?
I think I would say, don't worry, things would get better. Maybe what I told in the beginning, whatever happens, whatever has to happen would happen. So I know in younger age we do get anxious at times as to how things would turn out. Uh, I I would say to myself, yes, things would turn out well. You do your efforts, you will be rewarded. That's what I would say. Maybe I would want me to be not that anxious in my younger age.
Okay, amazing. And anything that you would like to add at the end?
Uh, I would say just help others. Maybe even if it is with helping someone understand things, maybe helping them with education, giving them some good experience. Just concentrate on that, and as I said, believe in karma. I would say, do good deeds. You'll be rewarded for sure. That's what I believe in, and that's what I'll share with everyone. I'd like to share with everyone.
Well, that was all from my side. Thank you very much for being a part of this conversation. It was really wonderful talking to you, and yeah, your stories were literally amazing to hear and learn from.
Though if someone can take some cues from it, I would be very happy. If someone can gain from it. In case anyone has any questions, I would be happy to answer those, maybe later on as well. And thanks for having me here. And sorry for the interruption that happened in between. That's something which was beyond my control. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, that's not a problem. Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.